Right, welcome back to another video on this channel. Today we've got a really interesting one, ladies and gentlemen, because this one might either make me look like a complete idiot come the end of the season, or make me look like I've got generational ball knowledge. It's one or the other really, no in between. Because yeah, today I'm going to be predicting the final Premier League table, how I think the table will pan out from 20th to 1st, and yeah, we'll just get straight into it I guess. Starting off with the bottom team in the league, and in my opinion it will be Bournemouth. Obviously they're 19th currently in the Premier League table. My reasoning for this, I just can't see them staying up whatsoever. I think in terms of overall quality in their squad, I think they've probably got the weakest, personnel in the league. And don't get me wrong, Gary O'Neill has done a decent job there since he's taken over, given what he has at his disposal when he took over from Scott Parker. But I just think, despite them doing decent business in January, I still think they have the weakest squad in the league, and that's why I think they will finish bottom. And now on to second bottom in the table, of course, 19th. I've gone for another team down south in England. I've gone with Southampton, simply because of the fact I think maybe the circle of life in the Premier League is finally taking its toll on Southampton. Of course, they have been a Premier League club since 2012. But in all seriousness, I think the main reason why Southampton will go down is a mixture of two things. First of all, Nathan Jones hasn't got a new manager bounce at Southampton whatsoever. The fans do not seem to be backing him in the slightest. And second of all, I think that Southampton, despite the fact they have a very good squad, especially in comparison to Bournemouth, for example, I think they've got too much inexperience, too many young players, and I don't think that they are equipped mentally for the dogfight they find themselves in at this moment in time down the bottom, and that's why I think that Southampton will be playing Championship football next season. Now on to 18th, and this is probably one of the hardest predictions in the list in terms of who I would put to go down with Bournemouth and Southampton, but for me I think there's a mini league of like 4 or 5 teams that I think are potential candidates for that third relegation spot, and I think out of those teams, I think the most likely team to go down in my opinion is Leeds United. I just think there's a few reasons. First of all, they're managerless at this moment in time. Jesse Marsch has just been sacked, so obviously I don't know anyway at this moment in time who's going to take over from him. I think there's massive pressure put on Jorginho Rute if he doesn't hit the ground running and score the goals, because where else are the goals going to come from, especially with Bamford's goal drying up recently. I think defensively they're very suspect and they're very gettable. I think they've got some very good midfield players, they've got some very good wide players, but overall, like I said, I actually don't think Leeds are, poor enough to be certainties for the drop by any stretch of imagination, so it's not an easy decision for me. But like I said, in terms of that mini league that I've picked out, I think Leeds are probably the ones I have the least faith in to stay up, and that's why I've gone with them in 18th. Now on to 17th, and the first team surviving relegation in this so-called mini league that I have created in my head. I've gone with Wolves. Maybe a bit of a surprising one, because Wolves actually do have some quality, even though they're down and about, that side of the table at this moment in time. And they have just beaten Liverpool 3-0 and played really well, and like I said, they've done some, decent January transfer business that has massively strengthened their squad. But once again, I question where the goals come from for Wolves. I know they've just scored 3 goals against Liverpool, like I said, but I don't know if Mateus Cunha will be the man up front to, as a false 9, deliver the goals. And yet, there's just something about Wolves. They've just been really off this season, and can Lopetegui keep them up? I think he'll give them a good chance, because I think he's a very good coach. But yeah, I think Wolves will stay up, but I think it will be marginal, and I think they'll have a poor season from their standards, and yeah, I do think that they will finish 17th. Now on to 16th, and the team that I would have 100% gone down if it wasn't for the manager they have just appointed, Sean Dyche at Everton. I think they will finish 16th purely because of Sean Dyche, essentially. I think they've got an okay squad, but the reason why I think their squad actually looks good on paper now is because I think they fit into the way Sean Dyche wants them to set up absolutely down to a T. And let's be honest, Sean Dyche, if he can keep up that Burnley side he kept up for how many years, I think he'll have absolutely no issues whatsoever in keeping this Everton team up, who are 10 times better in terms of personnel than that Burnley team. And yep, Sean Dyche, he's just a top quality manager. He's one of the best managers in the Premier League right now, and yeah, I think he'll have no issue keeping them up, and I do think they will finish 16th. And in my opinion, could finish higher up the table if things really click for Sean Dyche. Now on to 15th, a bit of an interesting one maybe, but I've gone for Leicester City, another team in that mini league that I did mention earlier on. I think their season massively relies on James Maddison's fitness. I think if he stays fit, they could have no problem finishing higher in the table, but if he does get injured, they could be in a little bit of relegation bother, because he has carried them on his back all season. They've got some decent players around him, but I just think Maddison is the glue in this Leicester team, and it just goes to show with their record with and without Maddison in the team, every time Maddison does, get injured or whatever, they do massively deplete in form, and given the uncertainty of Maddison's fitness, I'm going to, play it safe and have Leicester finish 15th in the league. Now on to 14th, I've gone with a team who have really struggled in the first half of the season, but I do think they have too much quality to, struggle for much longer. They've picked up a little bit of form recently, but I've gone with David Moyes' West Ham. Now yeah, I just think they have too much quality. In terms of the personnel, you look at Declan Rice, Lucas Paqueta, I think they've got a strong defence in Agard and Zuma and Ogbonna. Jared Bowen, if they can get Scamacca firing as well, I think West Ham have got too much quality. I know they've been, poor so far this season, and David Moyes is maybe losing West Ham. But yeah, like I said, I think West Ham have got so much quality in their ranks, and I think that they will probably, stagnate and maybe finish about 14th in the Premier League and pick it up just a little bit from the first half of the season. Now on to 13th, I've gone with a pretty standard one, Crystal Palace. I mean, they do seem to finish around there every single season, and I think this season will be no different. Palace is a weird one because before the World Cup they were really high and flying, you know, and ever since they've come back from the World Cup they've really struggled. I don't think they've won many games, if any at all, since they come back from the World Cup. And don't get me wrong, they've got some absolute quality, especially going forward with Zaha, Elise, Eze. They've got Doucouré in midfield who's absolutely balling out for them. They've got a solid defence as well with Anderson, Guéhi. I know Mitchell's not in the best of form this season, but yeah, I don't even know what the issue really is with Palace. I think they've done well in signing two midfielders in, you know, Ahamada and Sambi Lokonga. I think they'll add a lot of depth in midfield for Crystal Palace, which I think they needed. But I'm not sure what to make of Patrick Vieira and the job he's doing. I think he's done okay given the massive turnaround in personnel that Palace had from the start of last season. But yeah, I think Palace will just kind of, you know, average out and finish 13th, to be fair. Now on to 12th, I've gone with the second promoted team in this list. I've gone with Nottingham Forest. I think they've really clicked. I think even though they've made 30 signings, I think Steve Cooper has finally at long last found his best team. And yeah, I think Forest have got a lot of quality. You think of the fact they have Keylor Navas in goal, Brennan Johnson's really clicked up front with even Chris Wood or Awani or whoever they want to play up front. They're playing really conservative Route 1 football, Nottingham Forest, under Steve Cooper, but I think it's working for them, and I think Steve Cooper is a quality manager, and that's why I think Forest will finish fairly high up in the table, and I think they will finish 12th and have a really good first year back in the Premier League. Now on to 11th and the final position in the bottom half of the Premier League table. I've gone with Unai Emery's Aston Villa. Now there's just something about Aston Villa this season. I feel like they could finish well up higher in the table and finish like 8th or even maybe compete for a Conference League place, but there's just something about them, and don't get me wrong, Emery's doing a really good job there so far. He's got Ollie Watkins firing, he's got them playing some decent football overall, he's got them resolute and looking structured defensively, but I think it's way too early for them to be, you know, considering European qualification. I think maybe next season if he does get back in the summer, Emery, and gets a few of his players in there for that system. But yeah, I think Aston Villa is a fairly standard one. I think they'll finish around 11th, and yeah, I think it'll be an okay recovery this season after the shambles that was with Steven Gerrard at the start of the season. Now on to the top half, and the first team in the top half in 10th I think are going to be Fulham. They've had a really good start to the season. Marco Silva's doing an absolutely exceptional job there. He's got Mitrovic firing, he's fully playing to his strengths. João Palhinha's been an absolute animal in midfield. Bernd Leno's been great in goal. They've been very organised, structured all over the pitch, and yeah, they're having a very good season, and they are, you could say, that team, you know, that one team that every single season gets promoted and, you know, just does really well, finishes in the top half, and I think Fulham will finish in the top half. I think they'll finish 10th. Now on to 9th, I've gone with Brentford, once again having a really good season. They're currently in the top half and playing some absolutely beautiful football, and I think Brentford, to be fair, could even potentially slip into the bottom half of the table, given, you know, if Ivan Toney does get suspended for a long period of time. As of now, of course, we're not aware if he's going to get suspended or how long he's going to get suspended for, but yeah, as of now, of course, Ivan Toney is in the squad. There's no signs of him getting suspended as of yet, and I think Thomas Frank is an absolutely top quality manager. I think he's one of the best managers in the Premier League, and I think he will guide Brentford into a top half finish for the first time in their Premier League history, and yeah, I think Brentford will finish 9th. Now on to 8th, and I'm going to put Brighton and Hove Albion in 8th place. What a season they are having under Roberto De Zerbi, especially after losing Graham Potter, and De Zerbi has taken them to absolute new heights since he's taken over Brighton. They're scoring a hatful of goals, they're conceding very little, and they're just playing some exciting football. They've got some absolutely brilliant players, they're playing an absolutely blistering brand of football, like I said, and I just think they're having a really good season. I think they will compete with, you know, the top 7 for a Conference League place, and I think it would be an absolutely magnificent achievement if they can do that. But I just think the overall quality of the, you know, personnel of the teams above them will be the reason they don't, and even still 8th will be a very good finish for Brighton. It'll be progress from last season when they did, you know, record their highest ever Premier League finish, which they would break this season with 8th place. But yeah, I think Brighton will finish in 8th and will have yet another very good season and will have a very good second half of the season. And now on to 7th, and getting that precious Conference League place are my club Chelsea. Now, the fact that we're 7th, and I'm actually saying that I'm probably being generous to us in finishing 7th, just shows how poor we've been this season. We're currently 10th in the league, of course, but the reason why I think we will finish 7th is because of the players we signed in January. You think of Enzo Fernandez, Mikhailo Mudryk, João Felix, Benoit Badiashile. We've signed very good in January, and I think especially with the likes of Reece James and, you know, Ben Chilwell, Raheem Sterling, Kante coming back from injury as well for the second half of the season, I think it'll click a little bit for us, and I think we'll finish 7th, but no higher, to be fair, for me. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it will be a really poor season for Chelsea, but a little bit of a rebuild, and to be fair, we're not really focused on the league this season because top 4, in my opinion, is out of our reach, and yeah, I think we'll probably even out and finish around 7th in the league. But I do think Brighton could give us a very good run for their money if they really want to, or if we just decide not to show up for the second half of the season. Now on to 6th, I'm going to go with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Obviously, like Chelsea, having a horrendous season so far, but I do think they'll pick it up a little bit. Liverpool's issues at the moment, for me, rely solely on midfield. I think Henderson's legs are gone. Fabinho's obviously not been near the same player this season, and with their midfield being so poor, it's making their defence look horrendously vulnerable as well. That's why Alexander-Arnold is getting caught out so much, and they are, you know, leaking goals. But I do think that something will will click for them in the second half of the season. I think they've got too much quality to keep going this way. They'll have Luis Diaz back from injury, they'll have Diogo Jota back from injury, two players who will definitely add spark to their attack. And if Salah can, actually wake up this season and maybe put in a few goals, which he has done for the last few seasons but seems to have forgotten to do this season, then I think Liverpool will have a decent end to the season, and I think they will probably finish 6th, to be fair. Now on to 5th, and once again, predicting that 4th place was really, really tough, but I've gone in 5th for Newcastle. Now maybe a lot of you will be surprised that I've not put Newcastle in the top 4, but I just think my reasoning is I think Eddie Howe has massively overachieved with this Newcastle team so far this season. And don't get me wrong, they deserve massive credit because they've been absolutely sensational this season given the squad of players that Eddie Howe has at his disposal. And I just think as it gets to the last few weeks of the season, I think they will have an element of, freezing up, because especially when they see those, bright lights flashing in their face of, oh my god, top 4 is nearly here. That and the fact recently as well, they've kind of been a little bit exposed in terms of not being able to kill teams off, and they've, been susceptible to a lot of draws recently in the Premier League. And don't get me wrong, 5th will still be an absolutely brilliant season for Newcastle, especially if they go on to win the Carabao Cup, which I'm sure Newcastle fans would take in a heartbeat over top 4. But it would be Europa League football next season, it would be a very successful season for Newcastle, and look, they still might get top 4 of course, who am I to, say they won't? But in my personal opinion, I do think that those reasons add up to the fact that I think Newcastle will come 5th and just narrowly miss out on the top 4 this season. And now onto the top 4. In 4th place, you've probably guessed it already, I'm going to go with Antonio Conte's Spurs, and up to maybe the game against City, I was really questioning my, decision of Spurs getting into the top 4. But I just think as it gets into the second half of the season, I think they've got enough mentality, Spurs. I know we don't really, consider Spurs and mentality in the same sentence ever, but I think Conte will drill it into them. I think they'll have a successful second half of the season. That and the fact as well, I think they've got a lot better quality than Newcastle man for man in terms of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, who I know hasn't been the best this season but is still a quality player, Kulusevski, Romero at centre back, Bentancur and Højbjerg in midfield. And yeah, I just think Spurs will click for the second half of the season, and I think they will just about scrape themselves over the line very similarly to like they did last season and got top 4. So yeah, I think Spurs will be playing Champions League football once again next season. Now on to 3rd, I'm going to go with another one you probably guessed already. I'm going to go with Manchester United, and although I feel like they will fall off a little bit and drop off a tiny bit, but at this moment in time they show absolutely no signs of doing so. They're playing some absolutely brilliant football, and Erik ten Hag is doing an absolutely superb job there. Marcus Rashford's on absolute fire. Casemiro has completely revolutionised that team in terms of midfield and everywhere else, to be fair as well. Defensively, they look a lot more solid with Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane there, so yeah, I think United are showing all signs that they will get into the top 4. I think they do lack a quality striker in terms of, Weghorst and Martial. I don't think are the finished articles by any stretch of imagination. I'm sure a lot of you will agree with that, and that's why I don't think they are in a title challenge. I don't think they're anywhere near equipped for a title challenge in terms of the starting 11, in terms of some gaps in there, and of course squad depth as well. But yeah, I think 3rd will be a highly successful first season for Erik ten Hag, and yeah, I think it will be a very good season for United, incoming 3rd in the Premier League. Okay, now here's where we upset someone. Here's where we upset an entire fan base, or be on the good side of the other entire fan base. Who is winning the Premier League title this season? Balls on the line at this moment in time. Manchester City, in my opinion, will still win the league, and you might call me delusional because all the signs are there that Arsenal are the better team at this moment in time. There's a lot of, turmoil really going on around City at this moment in time, especially with the whole FFP investigation that's, just come out today as the time of this recording. But I just think people are forgetting that we're only halfway through the season. The gap is only 5 points at this moment in time. They still have to play each other twice. And even though I think Arsenal will win the game at the Emirates next week, I think City will win the reverse fixture. I think City just have this something in them whenever things are going against them in a title race, whenever they're a few points behind going into the new year or whatever, they just seem to turn it on, they just seem to click like that, and I just think that they'll have a really good end to the season. And look, I think another thing that could very well come into account as well is the fact that Arsenal have considerably less winners in their squad compared to City. I mean, all this City squad pretty much have won a Premier League title, and this is Arsenal's really first time with this new squad, of course, being at this side of the table at this time of year, and I just think that that will come back to bite them a little bit. And look, don't get me wrong, I think it'll still be a massive success for Arsenal this season if they were to come second, because a lot of people, myself included, didn't think they'd even get top 4 at the start of the season, so it would be a massive achievement for them still. But yeah, like I said, Arsenal could very much make me look like an idiot, and fair play if they do, fair dues, I will give them their flowers if they do win the league. But I just think there's this beast in City that they haven't revealed yet. They've got Erling Haaland, who is just going to bang probably 40 goals by the end of the season, let's face it. And yeah, overall I think City will just about pip Arsenal to the title race. I think it will be extremely extremely close, but yeah, I think City will come out on top, and I think Arsenal will finish runners-up. So yeah, now I can take my breaths, and now I can go and read the comments to see how much you guys disagree with me. Let me know what your predictions for the final table are in the comment section below. And yeah, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy. It would be massively appreciated as per usual. It means more than you guys could imagine. And also if you could subscribe to the channel as well. We are looking to hit 2,000 subscribers as soon as we possibly can, so every single subscription helps us get there as soon as possible. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. So yeah, let's hope I don't look like an absolute fool come the end of the season. See ya.